Cathal Berry has voted 9 out of 10 times in the past 7 months to restrict your freedoms. Holly Cairns has voted 6 out of 10 times in the past 7 months to restrict your freedoms. Sean Canny has voted 6 out of 10 times in the past 7 months to restrict your freedoms. Peter Fitzpatrick has voted 7 out of 10 times in the past 7 months to restrict your freedoms. Noel Greedish has voted 5 out of 10 times in the past 7 months to restrict your freedoms. Brendan Howlin has voted 7 out of 10 times in the past 7 months to restrict your freedoms. Alan Kelly has voted 6 out of 10 times in the past 7 months to restrict your freedoms. Michael Lowry has voted 9 out of 10 times in the past 7 months to restrict your freedoms. Catherine Murphy has voted 6 out of 10 times in the past 7 months to restrict your freedoms. Matt Shanahan has voted 6 out of 10 times in the past 7 months to restrict your freedoms. Duncan Smith has voted 7 out of 10 times in the past 7 months to restrict your freedoms. Hi everyone. On the 20th of March 2020, the Health Preservation and Protection and Other Emergency Measures in the Public Interest Act 2020 came into operation. Part 3 of this Act has been utilised by the Irish Government over the past 12 months to restrict the most basic fundamental human rights of every citizen of this country, such as making it an arrestable offence to leave your home unless you have a government-mandated excuse permitting your travel. Before this Act was signed into law, it was agreed that this Part 3 would expire on the 9th of November 2020 unless both houses of the Oireachtas approved its continuation, meaning that a majority vote from TDs is required to extend Part 3. On the 22nd of October 2020, a total of 92 out of 160 TDs decided that the Irish people could not be trusted to act in ways which they viewed to be considerate and responsible without the use of force. In light of this belief, they voted to extend this Part 3 of the Act, which requires you, a free citizen of this country, to meet a checklist of government excuses in order to live your life or face certain punishment up to and including prison. These politicians, who were elected by the people, for the people, decided with the stroke of a pen that our mental health is not worth consideration, that our children's education and development is not worth consideration, that the means by which we put food on the table is not worth consideration, that our elderly, cocooned and socially isolated are not worth consideration, and so on. The next vote to extend Part 3 of the Act must take place before the 9th of June 2021, noting that if this Part 3 is not extended, all restrictions around freedom, with the exception of mandatory quarantine upon entering the state, will cease. We therefore have a window of 8 weeks inside which to lobby TDs to vote against the extension of Part 3 of the Act, noting that if we are successful, this would mean that on the 10th of June 2021, all businesses and churches could legally reopen. You would no longer be legally required to wear face coverings. The Gardaí would no longer be able to question you under this Act as to your movements. Limits would no longer apply to weddings or funerals. And you could once again visit with family and friends without fear of being arrested and jailed. I fully accept that this campaign is not a sure thing or an easy win. However, nothing of worth is ever easy, and we owe it to ourselves and our children to do all within our power to regain our fundamental freedoms. Many people have told me that they have felt helpless over the past year and have repeatedly asked what they could do to help. My answer is, spread this campaign to everyone you know and ensure that they write to their TDs. I cannot overemphasise the importance of the vote to extend Part 3 of the Act that must take place before the 9th of June. If we can rally the country to this cause, this campaign has the single biggest chance of reversing the erosion of fundamental freedoms inside the shortest space of time. But to stand any chance of success, we need thousands and thousands of people to write to their TDs today and to persevere over the next 8 weeks until an assurance is secured that your TD will vote not to extend Part 3 of the Act. Without intending to condescend, because I am also culpable of this, I wish to ask you if you know whether the TDs in your constituency respect not only your freedom but also your ability and right as a free citizen of this country to decide what risks to assume for yourself and your family. With this in mind, we have reviewed the voting records in connection with COVID-19 legislation of all TDs for the past 7 months in order to determine which TDs would seek to preserve your fundamental freedoms and which TDs would seek to exercise more control over your family, your business, your health and your life. In the description box of this video, you will find a spreadsheet with this information. I would ask you to please study it carefully, noting that your TDs do not expect you to be armed with this information. You will note that the spreadsheet stipulates which TDs we recommend that you lobby, noting that recommended TDs are colour-coded in green and yellow. For each of the TDs we are recommending that you lobby, we have prepared individual letters which specifically addresses each such TD's voting record. Therefore, we ask you not to use the same letter for every TD. We would also encourage you to edit the letter to address any specific concerns or experiences you have encountered over the past 12 months arising from the erosion of your freedoms. We would strongly recommend that you only send letters to the TDs who represent your constituency, as TDs outside of your constituency will have little regard for your views. We would suggest that all of your focus and energy should be spent lobbying only those TDs who will want and need your vote again, as your continued support for any such TD can be used as leverage. We would also ask that you send these letters by both post and email, as we understand that some TDs may be blocking emails with certain titles in the subject box. In the description box of this video, you will find a link to the campaign titled Extension to Part 3 of the Act. When you click on this campaign, you will search for your TD's letter by constituency, noting that we have only drafted letters for the TDs that we recommend you lobby. Finally, I wish to re-emphasise that this project has the prospect of reversing the erosion of all of our human rights inside the shortest period. However, to stand any chance of success, every single person watching this video must write to their TDs today. I appreciate that many of you are now telling yourself that you have 8 weeks. But when this thought is going through your head, I would ask you the following question. What is your freedom worth? And please be under no illusion that if your freedom is not worth the time it takes to send off this letter today, we have already lost. A good number of people have put a significant amount of work into making this campaign possible, so I ask you to please take the time to write to your TD following the instructions in the description box of this video. To conclude, I would ask you to remember that freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction, so please support this campaign. Thanks for listening.